Our guest today is Kirk Kessel. He runs a real estate team called Carpenter Kessel in Indian Harbor Beach, right? Florida. Kirk, a good friend of mine. We've been in a mastermind together for more than 2 years. How are you doing today? And thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Doing great. It's a warm day in Florida. Let's put it that way. We're
recording in late August, so it's pretty steamy there, as I remember from my 14 years. But the real estate world is great in Florida and always has been. How long have you been in Florida overall?
My whole life. I was born in Miami, moved up here at 18 to go to college, and within less than a year or so,
you've been in the business of real estate in some form, like me, for a long time. You've got over 40 years in the business, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So did you start with investing, or did you start as an agent when you first got your first kind of taste of real estate?
I did both. So what happened? I started in 1982. It was when Jimmy Carter was in. If you remember, rates were 18%. I was too stupid to know any better. So what happened was I was buying homes that were on bond mortgages, which were at that time fully assumables. They had 2 bonds, 10.25, 10.95, and the people were like, "Listen, we just want to get out of our house," and they were back then $32,000. So you're like, "Hey, I'll give you $2,500. I'll give you $3,500 down, and I'll buy your house." Most of them had a negative cash flow because the rate was so high and our rents were so low. But I was making enough money selling houses. My first year, I sold 55 houses. I just carried the negative cash flow until 1986, when Reagan got in and changed the Tax Reform Act. And I held on. That was the first time of a couple of times that I held on with my fingernails and thought, "Oh my God, am I going to make negative cash flow?"
Do you feel that the perspective, though, of this long term, like I always say, with me, 30 plus years in the business, I think that like we as long term investors just know how to be calm a little bit as these market cycles happen. Like you said, you've been through enough market cycles to know that they're going to go down and go up. How have you stayed kind of on the real estate investing point to make sure that it doesn't all go awry? And sometimes it does anyway.
Yeah, you know what I did after that? So I had no, at one point my parents could have helped me, but by the time I was 22, I had enough debt that they couldn't help me anymore. And my dad's like, "What's your plan B?" My dad's always like, "What's your plan B? Yeah. What's your plan C?" You got to always have a plan. I had no plan B, and I thought, "Holy cow, if this thing goes south really fast, I'm going to be in trouble." And it did go south really fast. So I just worked literally 16 hours a day selling real estate to take care of the negative cash flow, sold off some of the stuff to get rid of the negative cash flow. You couldn't raise the rents because, right at that point, there was just not enough tenants. We had more rentals than we had, tenants. We had a property management. Yeah, I started a property management company just because I had so many rentals, and then I had investors I was selling so much stuff to. I had a property management company at one time with over 400 properties.
Did you get your license to make the extra cash to keep supporting those investments, those first investments, or you did it all at once?
It was all at once, and I really got my license because a gentleman that I used to mow when I moved here, I started mowing lawns to pay for college. And he said, "Listen, if I can sell you a lawn company." Now, remember, I'd only been mowing for like 9 months, but I worked like a dog. I'd work from 7 in the morning. I'd have to turn my headlights on the truck, and I'd work till well after dark. He's like, "If I can sell your your lawn company, will you come work for me in real estate?" I'm like, "I guess." I mean, he was like my grandpa's age. His wife was super nice, and they just took me in as like their kid. And so, he'd say, "I'll meet you at 7:00 in the morning. We'll go over what the plan is for the day." And I'm like, 7:00 in the morning? I don't want to be here at 7:00. One of those deals. Typical kid. And he was just a great mentor. I mean, unbelievable what he taught me, but he was heavy in investments and heavy with corporate relocation. So I worked with buyers for the first 7 years of my real estate career and worked 7 days a week with buyers, but they bought. I mean, they always bought. And, with tenants, I always practiced my scripts on my tenants because I didn't care if they rented. So it's like, "Hey, are you ready to sign the lease on this thing yet?" And then I would transfer that into, "Hey, are you ready to sign the contract yet?" But I really built my confidence up. I door knocked. There were duplexes that I wanted, so I just go knock on the door and say, "Hey, who's your landlord? I'm interested in buying this duplex." Right. "Oh, call Jonathan Green. Here's his number." I'm like, "Thanks." And that was back before we had the old plat book maps and getting on the microfiche to look up people.
I remember. Probably some of our listeners don't remember. But isn't it funny though that you can still door knock as a real estate investor, drive for dollars, walk for dollars, and still do the exact same thing, and it will work because you're making a personal connection. I think it's probably works better. Why was everyone so busy mass texting everybody that they're losing the personal connection that is how you really buy real estate, right? You got the name of the landlord, then you connected with the landlord and said, hey, I'm local, I'm new, this is, let's make a deal. I mean, I think that's where the stories start. And I think because of technology, it's made it seem like a little bit too easy for new investors. And that's why they get caught up in this, cycle of how can I get 100 units before you even get one? I mean, knock on a couple of doors.
It's so true. Yep. So what happened after Reagan changed the Tax Reform Act? I thought I got to get a new approach. My dad was on me. My dad was a corporate guy. He's like, "What's your plan B?" My plan B was to make sure I started putting more money down on these houses, so I didn't have the negative cash flow. And truthfully, my plan B kept me afloat in 2008 because if I had leveraged myself, I'd be like several of my friends and broke and starting all over. So I held on. It wasn't like it was easy peasy in 2007, 8, 9. But I didn't lose my, I lost a lot of net worth.
Right. And if you have the equity in to stay in it, you lose net worth and then net worth comes back. The same for me. I just wrote it out, and our rentals were actually, okay most of the time. Property values took a dip, especially in Florida. I took some heavy punches to the face during 2008 and 2009, but I survived.
Well, on top of the financial disaster we had in 2008, we had the Space Center that Obama shut down. So we had 7,000 employees overnight that were jobless. And so you have all these houses coming on the market. It was like, yikes. I mean, there were some great buys. We made some great money. But when I tell you, a $200,000 house went down to $100,000, everyone said it'll never drop 50%. Yeah. Never. It did. It dropped 50%. And I'm talking even on the Barrier Island. I'm on an island. So I'm like, it's like Cocoa Beach, Indian Harbor Beach, Vero Beach. I'm on an island. You think it's never going to drop in value. It did. It dropped. And it dropped 50%. So if you owed 75%, you either held on to it and you just paid the negative cash flow, or you gave it back to the bank. And a lot of people gave it back to the bank on short sales. We made some great buys with short sales.
There was a time when you could basically have whatever you want if you had the capital to do it. It was just which ones you wanted to take at the time.
Yep. You could cherry pick them. You could absolutely cherry pick them. And I think, I don't think we're going to see that again with this next market pivot or market change. But I think there's going to be there's a lot of people that have over leveraged themselves, not only with boats and cars and houses. They're just over leveraged. And as the market adjusts and the rates go up, they're going to say,
I think people buying in high on assets that they maybe don't even really know a lot about. But in terms of assets, you started with residential, but you scaled into pretty much every type of investment over the years. I know you have a bunch of land, you've had commercial, strip malls, you've done development. What's been the most fun type of investment for you over the last 40 years? The one that you enjoy the most?
The mini storage. I love the mini storage. It was unbelievable because it was all automated even back when I did it in 03, 04, 05, 06. It was just easy peasy. And then what happened was, we built 100,000 square feet of mini storage we bought 12 acres and then we sold off the 4 out parcels, which paid the other 8 acres for free and clear. And we're like, what do we do with this? We had all these people calling and saying, hey, we want to put mini storage. We're like, we don't know anything about mini storage. So of course me and my partner signed up for a course to go to mini storage. It's to learn about mini storage. So we decided, well, why would we sell it to somebody? Let's go build it. And I got to tell you, it was by far the most enjoyable. It was all automated. When I left there at 5 o'clock at night, people put their number in to get in. If you couldn't get in, you didn't pay. Hadn't paid your rent. 45 days later, you're out of there, buddy. You're gone. It wasn't I had to go get a shift. Nothing. It was easy. We're tenants. Our apartments I owned a lot. Yeah,
because they have tenants, right? Remember when Fernando Angelucci was on our mastermind that we have together, and he told us the same thing that you and I already know. There's no tenants and there's one bathroom, so there's barely any water issues. And if somebody doesn't pay their rent, you just lock them out with a key card. They can't get in. You have all their stuff.
I put another thing. Yep. Or I put another lock. I put in case they skid in behind somebody. I got another lock on their door. They're not getting in
just
anyhow. Beyond
not having to deal with people as much, even back then, it doesn't cost a lot to build, right? You're talking about industrial materials, and at really any time is not going to be super expensive to build storage units.
And you'd be shocked at the junk that people spend $175 a month to store an old couch. Like the couch isn't worth $175. Like, well, we're just going to store it there for a few months, and 3 years later, that stinky old couch
this is a great topic, though, because I don't think people talk about self-storage enough in just open investor forums. But generally, as a self-storage owner, you can raise the rates so much because it's such a pain for for somebody to go take their stupid old couch out, move it to another storage facility just to save $20. Just the move is going to cost what it's going to cost them over 3 months. So nobody does it. I look sometimes at my storage fees at the one storage unit that I have stuff in. I'm like, holy crap, it's cost this much, but like I'm too lazy to go move it. It's just a rock solid business.
Well, yeah, you've heard my story about my wife. She's like, let's move all the decorations for all the holidays into storage.
Yeah.
It was right a minute from our house. So because we had kids, we had Halloween, we had Easter, we had Christmas, everything. So we store all this stuff. I think it was, she's an accountant, $2,500 a year. She's like, one day she wakes up and says, do you realize we could buy all new decorations every year for less than we're paying at the storage? And that was my aha moment to say, get rid of all this crap.
And storage.
Let's just go buy new stuff every year. Yep. We were done with the storage because it was right by the house. And it was easy because I just pull up there, get a little dolly, get the Christmas tree, get all the stuff, load it in the car, bring it home. Yeah, but when it was done, I took it back.
Yeah, $2,400. I mean, but it was enjoyable to you because it was probably the most passive type. It requires very little management and brings in a lot of income, right?
Yeah, the next one that I enjoyed is the shopping centers, because the reality is you're doing a triple net lease. You build these shopping centers and you rent them out, and they're paying for everything. So you send a pass through and say, hey, the taxes went up, the insurance went up. Here's the breakdown. Here's how much more you owe next year. And that was the next easiest. The hardest truly is the rental, the single family homes, and and I own mobile home parks. I own 400 units at one point.
That's a lot of
upkeep, in Alabama.
Right? Yeah, I agree on that.
That was it was unbelievable. Yep, it was unbelievable. And
staffing is very hard for those too, because you usually have somebody who lives on site as a manager. They always know the residents, and then there's always problems inside a lot of mobile home parks. It's just a lot of transient people, so they're in and out a lot. A lot of stuff goes on.
Well, and if you didn't get the rent by Friday night, by Saturday they had drank it all the money was gone, and then you had to wait till the next week. Now they owe 2 weeks for the rent, because some of those paid by the week. Yeah, because
dropping back one sec. Can you just explain for the listeners what a triple net lease is and why it's so amazing? I think like newer investors will have no idea what it is and the benefits. You did touch on it briefly. It's basically, the tenant's paying everything, which is amazing. You weren't really paying anything. They're paying the taxes as well, correct?
Correct. So for instance, if I charge you $15 a foot, then I'm going to say you've got common area maintenance, you've got taxes, you've got insurance, you've got these other fees. The fees are going to be projected at this much. They could go up or down, but for 2022, here's what they're going to be. And then 2023, I get my new budget in and say, here's what they are. Sometimes they include air conditioning, they include water, they include everything. So as a landlord, you're only responsible to give them the shell of the building. There's times that I'll give you build out, and a build out means that you come in and say, hey, I like this office space here, but I want to knock out this wall and I want to open this wall up. And I'll say, I'll give you $10 a foot or $2 a foot or whatever it is. You need new flooring. Okay, I'll give you some money to do that. Here's the money. Send us the bills, and whatever it's over that, you pay for that. But when you leave all those improvements, and we have to improve
right, exactly. I think when we paid for build outs, it was the build out was not going to be business specific. Like we had a gym that wanted to do a build out, and we were like, we're not paying for it. No one wants the layout of a gym if a T-Mobile comes in afterwards. Like it doesn't work. Yeah, they're pigeonholing you into what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But I think the interesting corollary is both self-storage and then triple net is, again, it's very low maintenance on the owner side and good cash flow. So that's when people are thinking like, oh, I want passive investments. I know I don't really believe anything's passive. I think you have to pay for it to be passive, but those are pretty much as close as it comes, because those, at least with triple net, they're doing everything. The responsibility is on them. You're just giving them the shell of a building, like you said.
Correct. So let's digress to an investor like my son. So my son's just turned 20 years old, and I've got him on a program to buy 20 houses in 20 years. And the goal is to move in. When I bought him with minimal down. In his case, I'm like, put 20% down. If you can put 30, put 30. Do a 15-year mortgage. Move into the house with an owner-occupied loan. It's going to be less than an investor loan. And then when you fix it up, get it all ready to go, ideally within 6 to 12 months, you found another one, and then you rent that one.
Yeah, he's doing advanced house hacking because he's putting more down, which means his rates are going to be so much lower. His cash flow is going to be so much higher in that 6 to 12 months. And he's also licensed and working as an agent as well, right?
Right, and he's finding the deals. So if you think about this, he's 20 years old. By the time he's 40, I did the whole program for him. By the time he's 40, he'll own 20 houses free and clear. Do the arithmetic. I mean, let's just say they're $300,000 houses now. In 20 years, are they 500? Are they $600,000 houses? I mean, if they only double in 20 years, they're worth $600,000. And if you got 20 houses,
but just to own stuff outright. I mean, I grew up as a cash investor because of my dad, and I don't think that people understand the non-leverage leverage of being a cash investor, because you started out with leverage and then you paid it off quickly because you figured out how you want it, because then you actually have true assets. You're not, like you said before, correct. 2008 was a leverage disaster. People were over leveraged and they got hit for it, and they may again soon. So yeah, I mean, it's a great lesson. I mean, don't you think investing in and of itself, I have so many friends, you included, who either learned from their parents or wanting to pass it down to their kids. Like, it's just something you figure out over time. I didn't know how much I learned until I was about your son's age, when I was like, wow, actually, I know a lot. I was investing, at 18, 20 by myself, like your son is, and trying to figure it out, and I think that's an interesting thing for us at our age now, to tell new investors, like, you can do it, but also be careful and get mentors that you can trust, I think, along the way.
Yeah. And the thing is, a mentor is one thing, and then a partner is another thing. So, I mean, we could play on that, but the mentor is going to give you great advice, and he or she is going to have already done. You're going to talk to someone that's already done it. That's our age, that says, here's how I did it, or here's what I would have done differently. Yep. If you get a partner, you got to be careful, because basically, it's like having a spouse. You're having to agree to do the same thing, and you have to agree to have the long-term plan. Well, what happens if you get a partner and he or she gets divorced halfway through it, and then you got to sell off the asset? If you have the cash, sometimes you get a great buy. Right. Because I've had that in other times where I got great buys. Other times I was forced to sell stuff because I didn't have the cash to buy the partner out, because he or she got a divorce. So in a perfect world, the only partner you want is a money partner. You don't want a balloon mortgage in a perfect world. You want a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, and if you have to adjust it in 3, 5, 7, 10 years, then you adjust it. But I mean, that's a little bit of a risk, but it's certainly better than a balloon. They say, hey, you owe me $200,000. You're like, where do I get the 200? And what if you're not financeable at that time? Now you have to sell off this asset. So I mean, it's a big picture. To me, it's a big picture thing. And where do you want to be in 10 or 20 or 30 years? If $12 million or $15 million in 20 years is your number, I can show you how to get there. I mean, it's a good
point. I agree. I think that mentors and partners are so different, because I don't really want my mentor to be my partner. Long term, it happens a lot, because you get to a level where you're no longer in a mentor-mentee relationship. You're colleagues, and like, we both know what we're doing. But like a mentor, you have to earn the respect of a mentor, and you have to take in what they say for it to be worth the while as a mentor. You, as well as I know, as a mentor to other people, investors, agents, like, they have to bring something to our table, or it's not going to be worth our time. And that's what I think the difference is. Like, you had someone who looked at you and said, like, hey, I'm going to get your this landscaping business sold, and I'm going to just teach you stuff. And you were hustling. And I think that's where it comes in. There is, working together, and then eventually stuff can work out over time. But I think too many new investors are just looking for a mentorship by saying, hey, I'd like a mentor. And I was thinking, like, I mean, great, but what's in it for me?
Yeah, and that's what they all want to know. So, I can't tell you the seminars that I went to when I was 18 to 30 years old. I mean, everything
I
from
knew you did, Carlton.
Right on down. It was always like the newest best. I did them all. And so the best part is, it's like, okay, what idea can I get? Can I come home with 2 or 3 ideas that I can implement into this program? And all of them had good ideas. Some of them didn't work, whatever. I mean, it just depended on what it was. But if I came home with 2 or 3 ideas, that's how I built the network that I've got. It's just using other people's ideas and saying, hey, it's Tom Ferry says it all the time. It's R&D, rip off and duplicate. Hey, your idea works. I'm paying whatever it was at the time, $295 for your seminar. And I got, in some cases, $100,000 worth of information on a $295 seminar, because I took that back and I implemented it into
I think people, I always tell new investors, don't go buy things, but I tell them that not because the things that they're buying are going to be bad. It's because I know they're not going to implement the things like you're saying. So why are you going if you're not going to? Exactly. When I go to seminars or I go to a big event, I never go out at night, because I'm in my room all the knowledge that I got that day, making plans on how to use it. I'm putting it right into play right away. And I think that's exactly what the successful investors do. They're going to take something, a piece of advice. It's just like when the first day that your mentor said, hey, show up at 7 a.m. and you showed up. That's the first step. That's like a rich dad, poor dad moment. Like, I'm going to show up. I don't really want to show up at 7 a.m. because I'm 20 years old, but like, I'm going to do it. And then good things are going to happen, because you can get value out of any type of learning if you just put it into use.
So if you think about this, so again, I didn't know this. My mentor, George, set this stuff up. So he would say, hey, on Saturday, we're having a meeting with this attorney that he really liked. The guy turned out to be a bankruptcy attorney years later, but he was a real estate attorney. So every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock, we'd show. It wasn't a question of, are you going to show? It was a question of, if you show up late, you're buying breakfast. And then if we all show up on time, we're flipping a coin, and whoever loses the coin has to buy the breakfast. And the other guy had to pay for the tip. So we're always like, who's going to get the free breakfast? But really, we built. So I did it with an attorney for probably 10 to 15 years. I did it with an accountant on Tuesdays. So we built all the financial planners. So we did the same. It was the same 3 or 4 guys, but we built all these relationships over. I'm now 40 years in the business. I still got the same 2 attorneys I've used for 40 years. The one real estate guy is now bankruptcy. But when somebody wants bankruptcy, I'm like, hey, Dave's the guy you got to go talk to. He's the best guy. He's wonderful. But we built these relationships with these mentors. And that's what you got to do over time. You've got to have, I keep telling my son, you've got to have people that you can call and say, hey, I got a question. Not here, let me give you $350 for this stupid question. It's like, I got a question. Hey, Jonathan, you're a lawyer. Hey,
I mean, relationships are all of it, because as you get further along in real estate, we know you get deals from relationships. People will bring people like you and I deals because they know we're going to close it. And if the numbers are right, they're not going to give us bad numbers, because we'll never talk to them again if they fake us on the numbers. So, I mean, building those relationships, you end up in the spots where I think new investors want to be, where someone says, here's a deal. Like, I have overflow. I can't take this one, but this is good. Do you want it? You say yes, and you just close it. I mean, I think that's what everyone's looking for.
Well, and we do something even further, because we're all about integrity. And when I work with people, the most important thing for me is integrity. So I've got a commercial guy I'm working with right now on a project Chris Weaver set us up with. And he basically said, hey, are you going to participate? I'm like, 100% no. I said, I've talked to 5 or 6 other guys. Nobody's done anything. So you're my guy. So the reality is, if somebody else calls me with this commercial piece, because I have a specific niche that I want, I'm going to say, hey, go call Mike, because Mike's my real estate guy. I'm not participating. I could take half the commission. I don't want to. Mike's willing to go find something. He's bird dogging at it. He's making the phone calls. Yeah. It's all about integrity to me. I mean, in my case, it's a pretty small town, 600,000 people, but I agree. I wouldn't do it if I lived in Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I think you and I always connected on that from the first time that Shum connected us. Like, it's just an obvious way. Like, I want to do business this way. I'm not going to I don't have to do business another way, because it won't make me feel good. And I don't want that dirty money part of it at all. And that was your number one. I know I'm going to get to my list, but your number one most important trait for a real estate investor to have is integrity, right? Yeah. I think that maybe new 100%. Investors think they can't do it because they want so bad, and they don't understand that want and need are different. You can want something. You don't have to have it. You can just have to be, a little bit more patient. Can you fall into deals? Sure. Will you fall into bad deals? Yeah. But you have to be able to at least support the people around you, or no one's ever going to trust you. And then you're never going to get any deals. You're going to be taking all the dirty deals, trying to figure out who's trying to screw you on that deal. Awesome.
Well, and the reality is you're looking at building an investment portfolio. And I would always ask you the same thing, Jonathan, what does it look like in 30 years for you? And then if you don't know, then I'd say, okay, go back home and figure out where you think you're going to be. Draw me a picture where you're going to be in 30 years. I have no idea. Well, give me one in 20. Give me one in 10. If you can't give me 10, 20, or 30.
What are your little steps worth if you don't know what the big steps are going to get you to? Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yep. So show me the picture, and then I can help you get.
Yeah, I think that's why people like you call yourself an advisor, because you're working as in real estate. Sure, you have on-market license, big team at Compass, but in terms of advising people, I think the same way. Like, it's my job to tell a lot of people no because they're being stupid, and that's being a good advisor, protecting them from themselves instead of allowing them to just do stuff because everybody else is doing it. Let me hop into our questions a little bit. Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. No. It helps being honest with the people too, because you and I are at our careers where we don't need the money. So when I have somebody that says, "Hey, is this a property you think that will work for me?" Sometimes it doesn't work. Exactly. I'm like, why are you buying a single family house when you got all your kids gone, you got no pets? Why do you buy a condo
Enjoy
in the water?
it.
And they
Yeah.
mow the yard. They take care of it. They're like, oh, yeah. So it's like, enjoy your living. I mean, are you sure you really want a house? And I can't tell you the people that we've taken from condos to houses or houses to condos that said, hey, we love to golf. They golf once a week. Well, they like the water better. So live on the water.
That goes to integrity, though. I mean, I think that people respect and want to work with you more because you're not just going to tell them everything that they want to hear, because it's not right. They come to us for expert advice. We're there to give them the best decision on an investment. Is this a good investment? I mean, I don't think it is. Here's the reasons why. They're going to appreciate you more instead of all the yes people out there just trying to get people into another funnel or one sale, who think short term. And I know you don't think short term, or you can't last 40 years of real estate with a short term mindset.
No, and that's a lesson for your podcast. If you want to last for 40 or 50 years, it's all about long term. It's not how quickly can I get this deal done and go to the next one, because they will blackball you. They will say, hey, Kirk did this, or hey, Jonathan did this. Don't use him. There's a lot more blackballing than there is people saying, hey, Jonathan's the best realtor ever. It's like, could you please tell 10 of your friends? If you do something bad, they will tell 10 of their friends.
Right. It's a big investing country, but I know stuff about people in every state. It's not hard to find out. And that's how you vet who you want to do business with. You go through the people you trust to find other people that they trust. Correct. And that's kind of the relationship building that you can make over 30 to 40 years. All right. Your greatest influence in real estate and why? I know who it is, because obviously I used to be coached by Tom Ferry in that organization as well, fantastically by our co-coach at the time, Mike Shum. Why is Tom Ferry your most influential person in the overall scheme of real estate? And then on the follow-up, I'm going to ask you, how has Tom's coaching, which is generally more on-market coaching, helped you in your investing portal over the years as well?
Yeah, the big thing with Tom is I worked with his dad back in the 80s. So when I started, I was actually training. I used to speak for Mike, which is so funny. And Tom would be in the back of the room, and then we'd be cutting up, and we became good friends. Fast forward, did he work for Mike, for, 8 or 10 years, whatever, a long time. And then decided 20 years ago, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing. And so Tom drug me along with him. I did a little bit of coaching for Tom also, not long. But what Tom, I retired. I sold my first company in 01, stayed on till 04. And, thanks to Tom Ferry and Bill Mitchell that really kind of put the whole package together. And I had 2 kids at the time, and, bought a house over in Holland with my wife. And we spent more than 6 months a year there. It was just a great setup. After a year, my wife's like, you're driving me crazy. What are you going to do? You got to get a job. I'm like, I could be a Walmart greeter. I mean, what do you want me to do? She's like, because we didn't need the money at the time. We had a mid-sized jet. We were living life big. Well, that was about the same time the market took a big dump. I had kids in 02, in 04, and you can do the rest. 06, 07, 08. I was
my kids were 01 and 03, so I got you.
Yeah. So what Tom has done, and his dad did the same thing, but Tom, I think, articulates it better. He's more of a balanced type guy, and he's just does things a little bit differently than Mike did at the time.
Yeah, I think that's modernization too. It's not just that Tom's a son and younger, but he did the whole industry modernize and now start to understanding like, oh, investing is a whole part of being an agent as well. Why wouldn't it be? You have access to everything.
Well, and Tom's a huge investor. Tom constantly talks about how to build a passive income that exceeds what your earned income is. So it's like, that's something new. So you got all these realtors out there. Mike used to say this, and Tom still says it, is, hey, if you've got 40 listings, which listings should you be buying? Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, what a great thought. And we should think of every time we have that. I mean, at one point I had 115, 20 listings.
Got to be some
120 listings. There's got to be one. Yeah. There's got to be one that you could buy in that. So it got me thinking, hey, let me go to Mr. and Mrs. Seller here, make them an offer. If, I'll create it so it works for them, create it so it works for me. And next thing you know, I was starting to buy my own listings. It was a great setup. I just built a long-term passive income, and I've done it with everything from condos to shopping centers to warehouses, mobile home parks, subdivisions, a lot of subdivisions. I mean, I love them all. I mean, the only one I don't like is condominiums, and that's a whole nother story, but I would not build any more condominiums. We represent a lot of developers that do, but they're a lot of work, a lot of municipalities. You build a 10-story building, and
you're
the
in
market
trouble.
turns on you. Yeah, you can be stuck with 70 or 80 units. Yeah, you're in trouble. Where if you build townhouses, a row of townhouses, when the market changes, I just stop. I'm like, I'm not building anymore. I'll rent those last 6 out, and I'm done. And now I've gotten to the age where I want to build it out of pocket. I don't want to borrow money. So
Right.
I'm not looking to build a $40 million high rise anymore. I mean, it's just no thanks. So it's changed. But Tom really balances you out. It would be the
I think so too. I mean,
my
my experience is also it's just very like attainable. It doesn't seem like it's too hard to get to, and I think that you're right. I mean, I think for those of us who are licensed and also been investing, you have to have. I mean, this podcast is called Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing because it's a mindful approach to real estate, and I think Tom has provided that to so many people over the years. Agents who are investing also, and then those agents are going to relay that to the investors. So like, relax. You don't have to have every property. You can't have them. There's like properties everywhere. Like just get another one. They come a dime a dozen. I don't understand why people get so hopped up, over X property as an investor. There's going to be another one around the corner the next week that you won't be able to get because you got this dumpy one that you were, so excited about.
Exactly. And the question in my mind always is, how do I get my passive income to exceed my earned income? And my earned income just keeps growing. So it's like, I got to get my passive income to keep growing too. And then at some point you say, hey, I got enough passive income. Why am I working? I work now because I still love it. I got a great business partner that just, he's young. You've met him before. I mean, Dwayne's just full of piss and vinegar. He understands all the social media stuff. I'm like, every night this week, I've got some dinner party I'm going to. So I'm out and pumping the hands.
Dwayne's my type of guy. I mean, you and I are friends, but like Dwayne and I can hang out because I don't want to go out of the house myself.
Yep. So, I mean, we've been partners since 2009. So very different. He's now doing lots of investing. He's starting to do flips with me. We do a lot of flips. For a while with all the flip shows out there, you couldn't find it because people were overpaying for everything. We really have a tight little window that we work in. We're looking at making at least $100,000 per house. Yeah. If we can't, we'll pass it to an investor. We had people paying more than they weren't making any money. There's no way they can make any money on the deal because they said, "Hey, this is it's $130,000. You and I talked about this. They're going to make on this house. Right. They paid $130,000 over my offer. I'm like, they're going to lose money on this. There's no way. And there's always something when you get into a house that you didn't forecast. It's something. Crushed pump, sewer line. Something you didn't find.
Those end up to be half done flips or foreclosures at some point because they mismanaged the budget because they didn't know. Yeah. We did talk about the integrity part a little, but I think this was interesting. One of our pre-questions is what one way we could collectively make real estate investing world better. You did have integrity in there, but you also said as you went to what your expertise is, it's assessing that client customer care relationship and figuring out what the investment is. How hard is that for you to separate yourself as an investor? Maybe you have more risk tolerance than to someone who's a client who's maybe done one investment versus 10 investments, giving them advice on what they actually need. Similar to what we were talking about, like you can't be a yes person, but how do you best do that in that client agent relationship, balancing your experience, but then to help somebody else?
You ask them, okay, Jonathan, what's your risk tolerance? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 means I've got no risk. 10 means I don't care. So they're usually tell you they're between 3 and 7, somewhere in that range. And if you're a 7, it means you're going to take a whole lot more risk. And so then my question is, if you're going to take more risk, how much risk? And here's the property that we're looking at. Here's what you have to do to make this thing work. This is clearly a 7 or more. Or is this a property for you? Or hey, this is a no-brainer. It's a 3. But you're at a 7, would you buy this property? And most guys that are 7 won't buy 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes with what you said before about like, where do you want to be in 30 years? That helps you set up a long-term plan. So it's not just a one-off, for people who say, well, I'd like to make $100 a door. That just sounds terrible to me. Like, what's the asset like? I always talk about assets. I know you're going to agree with me on this. I feel like people are missing the part of like what an asset is. I can do all the calculations I want, but when you're talking about residential real estate, it's different. I'm looking at, is this an asset that I want to hold and acquire? Maybe the cash flow is not great right now, but if I'm good at what I do, I could see long-term, that's going to be something that maybe is going to turn more appreciation, which I've always been more of an appreciation investor than cash flow. Do you agree with that kind of like looking at assets as a whole? I know you do from what you've invested in. Those are asset-based investments.
I do. And the other thing that I agree as I get older and what I'm trying to share with my son and my nephew, the same thing. They're both, young investors. I'm like, you should buy something that you don't mind owning 30 or 40 years from now. So to me, it's an A property. If you're buying a B or C or a D, I bought plenty of D properties, but they were in areas like downtown Melbourne that have only done appreciation. So, I spent $30,000 on a 1928 house that was a piece of junk. that today is worth $275,000. And yeah, it costs extra money to keep it up. I mean, you're constantly dishing out. They've got pipes and they got windows that, they're crappy little square windows, just junk stuff. But talk about a great, but that's a C or D investment. But I want to own them for 25 to 35 to 40 years because they're in a downtown, they're in an up and coming area. I wouldn't buy a D property.
Yeah.
And I have owned a lot of D properties. I owned shopping centers that were Ds. That the county came in and said, "Hey, we'll buy your shopping center. We want to put a library."
Fantastic.
I'm like, okay, fine. Because the shopping center was such an eyesore to the community. I used to have to go down there with the Melbourne Police Department to collect my rents. It was one of those deals where you just couldn't go on your own to collect the rents. You have to decide what your appetite. That was not a property that I thought I would own 20 or 30 years from now. Now I look at stuff and like, how do I buy this property and own it, and at some point just turn it over to to my estate? Does that make sense? I mean, I'm looking at I'm looking at A properties right now. No more C and D. I don't have the appetite for C and D.
I don't know that I ever did.
No more mobile
I really don't. I mean, I think especially as you get older and then you have assets, you really don't want to take things on that are going to take away from your life. And I think that's part of, again, a mindful approach. Like, maybe when we're younger, we will take a risk on one and maybe do some of that management ourselves. But like, as you're cruising down the road there, I don't want things to stress me out. I know you're the same way. Like, I'm going to get stressed sometimes, but I don't want to buy a property that's also going to add stress to me. Things will happen, tenants will leave, but I want to make it as easy as possible for myself.
Well, that was my mobile home park in Alabama. I had a park with 400 units plus a storage facility in the front of it. And then I had a partner. So this goes back to the partner. The partner found the project. The partner had no money, so I was the money guy in this deal. Yeah, and to be honest with you, he was a horrible partner. So finally, after a year and a half putting up with this silliness, I said, either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. Here's the number. We had a partnership agreement. And he came up with the money. I don't know how. And then less than 18 months later, he
got out of that at the right time.
Yep. And it was a moneymaker. It was a moneymaker, but he would pull in there. I was flying in my jet. He would pull in there once a month and take all the cash. I'm like, you can't do that stuff. You just can't do that stuff. Yeah. He said, well, you can take what you want out. I said, no, I'm trying to build this park up, not take the money out. Yep. You've got to keep the money in the park. So it just wasn't working. And that's why I say
I agree. I really agree. I think you have to build up years of relationships before you, like, I partner with my best friend and project manager, Jenny, here, because I know we know everything that we're going to do. I have no worries. No one's going to steal any money. We both have the same money. So there's really no issues that go on. And we're able to manage the conflict. But yeah, you can go awry, especially I've been the money in the transaction and things have gone awry as well. And it's just, I'm like, why did I do that? I didn't need to do that. I just go find the deal myself or hire someone to go find the deal for me. All right. So as we get wrapped up, we'll get this one question and then I'll ask you one last question. But this is the one that was on our pre-call too. What's wrong with the real estate investing world now? And you said greed. I couldn't agree more. How is the description though to you? Why do you think people are so greedy, especially in the real estate investing world?
I think everyone's looking for great returns. There's two answers to this. If you're Jonathan, the agent, you're going to make those returns look as good as you can, which is the integrity part of it, because you're not giving all the numbers. So then I call him up and say, hey, Jonathan, where's the management fee on this? Oh, we don't have one because my wife manages. Yep. Hey, Jonathan, so I'm looking at an internal rate of return, maybe at 11 or 12%. Then I'm like, Jonathan, where's the maintenance factor? Oh, we don't have it because my brother-in-law fixes everything. Well, there's still a cost, but where's the vacancy factor? Oh, we haven't had vacancy at all. We just now got one. I'm like, so all of a sudden I got three variables that are missing, and now my internal rate of return went from 12 down to 6. Yep. That's an integrity issue. So I see that. That's the first thing. And then I see people constantly trying to push deals through that just don't make sense. And you're like, it goes back to integrity. I mean, you call it greed, you call it integrity. It's all the same thing to me. It's like the numbers are really, this is what the numbers are. And if you don't want to buy this property with a 6% internal rate of return,
exactly.
That's what the numbers are. I mean, if you want to manage it yourself, if you want to manage it, Jonathan, I can get you up to 11 or 12. Meaning you're the one fixing the toilets. You're the one up on the roof, slapping the stuff on the roof. But I have to be honest and say, this is how you get your rate of return up. And then they all tell you, the rents are all under.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to do it. They want to pass it all to you, but they still want to get that like 10, 12 cap that doesn't even exist. I mean, Ryan Goldfarb, our friend from our mastermind, when we were doing a self-storage, we had offers out on 2 and they gave us their data. And it was the same thing as you just started this part with. like, oh, well, you don't have any management fee. I manage it myself. Great. We don't want to manage it ourselves. Yeah, there's no such property with no CapEx. It's not a new build. It's a 90-year-old storage facility. It has CapEx. Yeah, I think that's important. I think the one thing I find interesting in the greed portion is that I think people almost want to be greedy in advance. They want to say, like, I always say, somebody who says, like, I have 100 units, and the first question I ask is, well, like, what percentage do you own of all 100 of those units? It's never 100%, because you don't own 100 doors if you don't own 100% of 100 doors. If you own 10% of 100 doors, you have 10 doors in my mind, because I can do math. And I think, like, new people are just wanting to see what it's like because they hear the scale, but, like, it doesn't matter. What does it matter if you have 100 doors that are all, $52 a door? That just means when the crap hits the fan, you're in trouble on all of them. You're going to lose them all. That's 2008, in Texas, all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me give you a quick deal. I know you're trying to wrap it up. So I've got a deal right now. It's across from the ocean. It's a little six unit townhouse with I think I've talked about this, with a pool in the middle. I've got $500,000. I'm around everything. I've got $500,000 in it. I've got an offer, unsolicited offer for $1,250,000. I'm ready to break ground. I can build 3 units and then put the pool in and then build 3 more. So minimal, it's all out of pocket. So no risk, no nothing. If the whole market, the Ukrainians blew us up, I turned into a rental place. It's across the street from the beach. I'm going to be fine. I've got an offer now for $1,250,000. All I did was entitle it. So I think, gosh, I can make $750,000 on this deal, or I can build it out and make another $1 million. So I can make either $750,000 or $1,750,000. If the market keeps going up, maybe I make $2 million. In my stage of the game right now, if they'll close on this thing in 30 days, I'll take the $750,000.
You just do it again.
Move on to the next deal.
Just do the same thing again.
Yeah, if they don't, I'll just build another one. But that's where the greed comes in. I mean, nobody ever, remember this, nobody ever went broke making a profit.
I think that you have to know and be willing to take not a short-term thinking, that's actually long-term thinking, to take the deal that's in front of you, because let somebody else worry about the rest of it. I always say, like, when people say, oh, there's no price on my house. Yes, there is. I mean, I'll move anytime somebody wants to pay me what I want, and probably even less than that. I don't care. I'll just go get another house and do it the same way.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why I think.
I'm moving to the Hilton.
Exactly.
I'm moving to the Hilton until I find a house. Exactly.
I'm fine with that. Just wrapping up. So, I mean, for all investors out there, I mean, you have so much experience. What do you think one thing is that all investors could do to be just a little bit more mindful about their approach? I know we talked about it a lot, in the different things that we went over, but if you could give investors one piece of advice from your 40 years of experience, what would it be?
I don't know. I don't know if I'll answer this correctly. I think that I would say is don't be greedy. When you're trying to buy something or sell something, put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, hey, this deal really doesn't work. I mean, I'm not looking to sell you something that I've fudged the numbers on. And then when you get it, you're going to call me up and say, hey, Kirk, these numbers aren't what you told me they're going to be. That's not what I'm looking to do. I'm going to give you the real numbers. I'm going to show you everything. You see people all the time that say, well, I put all this cash in my pocket, but it really makes this much money.
That's not real.
Put the cash in your pocket. I'm not using the cash. I'm using what you put on the books. I'm using what you pay the IRS. That's how I'm doing it. It goes back to integrity. I mean, I know I've said it 100 times, but just treat others fairly. That's the most important thing. You treat them
where
fairly,
did transparency go that it wouldn't make everything easier? I think the last thing you said is so important, to put yourself on the other side. I'm always telling people, like, well, what about, we have buyers who just want what they want. And you say, well, what about the seller? And like, well, I don't care about them. And like, well, if you don't care about them, we're already in a sideways part of a transaction. Like, me with my background in law, I was adversarial. I was a prosecutor for 8 years, criminal defense attorney for 2 years. Real estate's not supposed to be adversarial. There's a way to work it out. It can definitely go that way. But I think if you're doing what you say, and if your focus in an investing scenario, buying or selling, is, hey, well, what are they thinking? And then you're going to it's much easier to get to that middle ground of mediation when you put yourself on the other side, instead of thinking like me, selfish and greedy all the time. I know.
Which is how people think, unfortunately, in most
hopefully
cases.
Things like this podcast can change that, at least in the investing side. I think for new investors, they just need more of a voice of reason. And it helps coming from people who've been in it as long as you and as long as I have, to say, like, not much change. If we go back to how we started, you just were knocking on doors. nothing is stopping a new investor from getting a nice list very cheaply. You could still go down, get it at the courthouse, you know, or at the local, any building department, and just go do it, you know, knock an area that you want to invest in.
And
yeah,
build
exactly. All right, my friend, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I think everybody's going to get a wealth of knowledge from you. If someone were to want to get in touch with you, I know you're like me, you just have a full blockade on it. Would they go through your assistant? We're the same. They're like, no one could get to me. I'm in the glass box. But if someone wanted to send you a message, where's the best place that they should do it?
Best place would be to, they could either email me at kirk@carpenterkessel with 1L.com, or they can call the office, which is 321-214-8400. And they'll vet the call there and figure out when and how. But, you know, I don't mind calling people back. It's just got to kind of be on my drive time. And someone with a presentation. I think if you look at people like us, we like to spend our time wisely. So if someone has a great question, they've done the research and they said, hey, I've researched X, Y, and Z. I got to this point. Can you help me with that? Then I know I only have to spend 10 minutes. I can give them a succinct answer instead of saying like, hey, how should I invest? Like, that's too broad for me. 100%.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. This is Kirk Kessel. This has been Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We'll see you next time.